All right, so it's been a little minute, but here we are. You can see I've got a bunch of pieces here. Ordered, a variety pack of these connectors for the PCB, the Mesa. The ones I was waiting on were these orange ones. These will connect to the stock EMCO plugs that would plug into the ACC, so it's nice, it's orange. And then I've got however many active pins. So this one's got 4 and 8, 7, 5, and 6, right? So that way I have the right size connector. I'm not using pins that aren't active in the machine. And then I've got one for the 5-volt one for the 24-volt and ground, the 2 DB15s for the spindle and encoder, and then this little one for the X, Y, and Z motors. And then I also got some little Molex connectors for the breakouts of the 3 motors with a cable, a double-ended cable actually, for Molex to Molex, and then I can trim it to length to go to the Mesa. Pretty much I'm designing this board to be a breakout. It's kind of a dumb PCB in that all it does is take the stock connectors and then gives me outputs that I can then run to the Mesa. It's that way I didn't have to take the stock cabling and then cut it to run here. It'll be a nice clean, and then literally can wire it straight to these connectors. So that way I can hot swap things around pretty easily without affecting any of the stock wiring. Yeah, so that's where we're at with the connectors. So I took all those connectors and I threw them into, this is Easy EDA, a PCB design software. Here's a little schematic. All the stock 11-pin connectors, their output connectors, the motors, the power. Okay. From there, I was able to create the PCB footprint, aka the actual board footprint. Right there's the purple outline, all the connectors with their footprints. Boom, boom, boom. And then I was able to go in here and label everything as well to create this 3D file, right? A kind of a idea of what it'll look like, right? These 5 will be the orange connectors, so that'll be the stock cabling coming in, as well as these 2 here. Everything else will be, actually these will be green. Everything else will be green, so it'll be easy in, easy out. You can see I labeled them with the stock EMCO labeling scheme. Underneath here, I labeled all these with what EMCO labeled them as on the ACC, right? So 24 ground, A9.0, yada, 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 right? On the output side, so this upper bit, I kind of labeled them what they do, kind of what they say in the wiring manual, right? So agree button safety, e-stop, auto key, door close, tool turret position, tool turret lock, that kind of stuff. Cycle start, obviously. And then there's the motors with the XYZ Molex connectors, the power, 5-volt, ground, 24-volt. And then I labeled the board, put some through holes in it, and then this will be able to mount onto some standoffs. So, yeah. I've ordered this. This should be coming in the next week or 2, I think. And then I can get this plugged in, hooked up to the Mesa, and then I still got to install Linux CNC on that PC in there. So right now we're in the PCB breakout phase. Like I said, this is kind of a dumb PCB. All it does is take the inputs and then breaks them out as outputs that I can connect to the Mesa board. So now that I have my PCB breakout board design, I've got my Mesa and I've got my 2 DB15 connectors, I can actually go in and actually start designing the backer board that all of these will mount to, that will then mount into the machine, right? And I'll show you where. So all of that is going to mount onto these 4 little studs right here. Mesa, 2 DB15 connectors, and then the breakout board, right? And then all these stock wires will plug right in, and then this will plug right back into the machine here. So that's kind of my next step, is get the measurements of these 4 holes, place those different components, and then get that probably laser cut out of acrylic to bolt in here with some standoffs in it. And then the next step is then getting Linux CNC installed on the PC on the other side. So we're getting there. All right, so par for the course. It's been a minute, but there's the board. I still haven't soldered it up just yet. I saw this idea online. I think it was Cloud42's YouTube, where he made kind of like this 3D printable solder jig, right? So it's got pocket cutouts for all the little PCB header components, right? And then you take the board, slap it there on top, all the pins stick up, and then you just go down the line soldering, and then you pop this whole thing out. So that's kind of what I made here, right? All the little components that I've got, I've faced them the right way. So then this guy will line up on all these pins. That'll take forever if I try to do this. And then I can just go down the line, solder them. These are kind of wedged in here now, but pop it out, and then all my components will be nice and flat. Since some of these components are taller, some are shorter, this jig has offsets so that they all sit at the same pin height to the base of the header here. So it'll make the PCB, once it's soldered up, nice and flush and flat and straight. So it'll look nice and tidy. Unless my soldering joints suck, then it'll look like crap. But yeah, that's the next step. I'm going to get this soldered up. Alright, so here's me trying to line up all these pins, right? I'm going to start in the bottom right here, I think. Yep, there we go. There we go. Yep, there we go. Go. And the ones that are kind of a pain are these Molex connectors here. There we go. There. Right? So now I just got to go down the line and solder up this, I don't know, 100 or so connectors, 50 connectors, how many I got. So I've been working in the ACC replacement cabinet here. You can see I've got couple prototypes here to kind of mount up on these screws. There's version 3. Here's version 4. I've got my custom-made PCB board, the Mesa, and the 2 DB15 breakouts all mounted on standoffs for airflow and cable. You can see I've got slots in here. I'm actually going to do another board behind it to actually hide all the cables within. But this guy will bolt like a glove, just like the original ACC did, right up in there. All the plugs go in here, the 2 DB15s, the Ethernet up into here, and then I can just wire them from under this plate back up to the Mesa, and then it's onto the control Linux computer at that point. So I got a different backer plate made up here than what I previously had with all the slots. Somebody smarter than me on YouTube said, hey, don't put all the wires behind because that's going to be a pain in the ass for wiring, troubleshooting, debugging, and fixing. So I scrapped that version, went back a version. I might do a little 3D printed cover for all these wires, but this is how far I was able to get wiring today, just because the rest of the wire that I had ordered didn't show up today, but I did have the motor wire, so I got the 3 X, Y, and Z stepper motors wired, labeled, trimmed, and what is it called? Terminal locks or terminal connectors put on. The only ones I didn't do were the Axis ready ones for the XYZ. I might tie these together to one or to 3 different outputs. I've got to go through and finish mapping out all the rest of these pinouts and stuff for, you know, the spindle and all that fun stuff. But I'll do that tonight. I'll map out all this stuff so that I know when I get the wire I can start working through that. So I just dug into the machine, just tracking down the Ethernet cord, right, which comes from, you know, the main computer up front. Tracked it down the side panel here, and it led me down into this main bottom panel, which actually is only a handful of screws and come off, but it was zip tied every 3 inches in this rat's nest of cables. So there certainly is an abundance of cables. So if I'm running low on money, I could just snip some of this copper out of here and take it to the recycling center and make some money, I think. So far this investment is paying off just in the copper weight alone. And apparently there was no shortage of zip ties in 2004 when this one was built. But now I've got plenty of Ethernet cable, and you can see I've got my lovely acrylic backer panel in place now. I don't know if I'm going to use this light or not. I want to put lighting in here. I've been using these little guys. I don't know if I'm going to use that one or not. But that, I need something in here. More permanent, I think, on like a nice switch. So you can see it all plugs in. Now the Ethernet will reach, and then the rest is just all my wiring that I'll have to add into this guy. So we're getting there. So one of the next things I have it on order. It's a DIN rail mountable. It'll take the stock. This was the AC computer power supply. I'm going to run that up to a DIN rail mountable. That'll drop it to 5 volts to get it over to the Mesa, to give the Mesa its own isolated power supply. And then everything else, the Mesa will supply power to the encoders and to the enable pin, I think, for the motors. And then all the 24 volt will come from the machine coming up here, in theory. The other thing, you can hear my machine is on. I've got Linux CNC installed on the computer in here. It is running, it's connected, it boots up. Now I just got to figure out which I guess skin I want to go with, which one matches the screen resolution that I have the best, which one looks nice and new and matches the machine to some degree, or a customized one. I did like QT Dragon, but this screen is kind of a weird 4:3 aspect ratio. It's not a true 16:9. So I might have to play around with that. I want Pro Basic is the one that I want, but I was having trouble getting it installed. I might try that again soon. But now I can start, once I get that wired, simultaneously getting the HAL file set up so I can get the machine, then talking to the Mesa board and that whole fun stuff. My goal is to get this machine moving in the next 2 weeks. I don't need it cutting yet. I just want it moving in the next 2 weeks. If I can get it spindle going, great. Because I know the beast is, this thing is going to be the elephant in the room, the tool turret. So I just want to get it moving first. Alright, so I lied. I did not get this machine running by 2 weeks or whatever my deadline was. It's been 2 months. Machine's still not operational and running. Not a lot has changed. Not a lot is happening. I've been waiting for parts. Not a colossal failure, but not operational. My Mesa 7i96S is going to be replaced with something bigger. The 7i76EU. More ins and outs, field power. I think this is the right board now that I need. The custom PCB that I designed was terrible. The first PCB, terrible design. I missed some traces. They moved by like a millimeter, so they didn't work. So I had to do some jumpers. Not great learning experience. The idea was there, but the execution just wasn't. So I'm gonna have to redesign this backer board, bigger Mesa board. We'll still talk to all these things. All of these jumpers and stuff, a lot of them were just 12 volts in and out, jumping through the ACC to trigger the contactors and relays. So with the board with the field I/O, I should be able to feed the 24 volts into the board itself, back out, and that should solve a lot of my problems that I'm having, or the I/O that I'm lacking here. The other big problem that I'm seeing is I can get power via the contactors to these guys. Hopefully I'll be able to trigger that from the board. But I think it's these two boards that are stopping me, that are safety operation boards, that are EMCO specific. Everything seems to feed in and out of this. So I think I need to bypass these two boards unless I can get them working with the new Mesa board. Pretty much, I think it's like if this, then that kind of conditions need to be met to trigger the various physical things in the machine. So like door sensor and stuff like that. So I think I may have to bypass these two boards, which could involve running separate wires to the things or yanking out these two. I haven't yanked out anything big other than the ACC itself, so I'm trying not to cut anything out of the machine just yet. I want to make sure stuff works before I start yanking things that might work and, you know, save some money there. These drives are pretty old, but they seem to fire up and work. I can get power to all these guys. The other upgrade back here, I'm considering of bypassing or losing the mini PC up front and mounting a Raspberry Pi 5. This is the Pi 5 16 gig. Back here instead, USB, Ethernet, and all that stuff, and along each HDMI to go to the front. I can DIN rail mount it right here, get power to it. Still toying with that idea if it's good to have that control Raspberry Pi back here or isolate it up in the front cabinet. Either way, I'm going to the Pi 5. It just cleans up that whole mini PC situation right now. I've added a little light up in here. It's wired just temporarily to just a plug, so I can do it from house power. Eventually I can run it to this power with a switch, or I can, you know, if I'm not running machine power, I can pull it out and plug it into a plug. So it's got a little US adapter for that. So that should be good there. I did have to wait about 2 months for this board to be in stock, which is kind of the big delay here. But I just got it this week, so hopefully we can get this in here and get it talking machine soon. What I've also found is Linux CNC will not, out of the box, is not seeing this keyboard emulator. So I got to do some digging into that, see if there's a driver I need to get this stuff talking. Kind of my one option I can go is replace this panel, put a 21-inch, 22-inch touchscreen. So remake this panel, put a 22-inch widescreen HD touchscreen in here, which would be nice. Add my own buttons like they have here, maybe even steal these. Or I've seen there's a project of people using an Elgato Stream Deck, and then there's the Stream Deck module. So I'm considering that down the road, because I don't really need a full keyboard up here because I have a keyboard down here. So kind of toying with that, and I may do that as a temporary, just get a monitor and rebuild just a basic laser cut one just to put a bigger widescreen monitor on here for the hope of, you know, a Pro Basic screen or something down the road. Not so much worried with that. For now, I'm just using a cheap monitor on the other end, on the back end, just to kind of see what I'm doing. This isn't actually plugged in or connected to the machine at the moment. The other thing that I've been doing since I've been waiting for that Mesa board to get back in stock and to be shipped, I picked this guy up off of Facebook Marketplace. This is a Harloff brand 4-drawer medical cart. So this is out of a doctor, hospital, something like that. It does lock if I really needed to. I won't. It's got really good wheels on it with locking brakes, handles if I need to move it around, but it's actually a good height and size for what I need. On the top here, I laser cut this 1/4-inch acrylic in this smoky green gray. 3/4 of it is this Saunders fixture palette spacing, so that I can, you know, get my mod vices with these pins in here and just kind of drop them wherever I need to. As I get more pallets and stuff like that, vices or 4th axis, I can kind of stage them here instead of in a drawer, and then it'll be really easy to load and unload the machine because it'll match these pinouts. The back a little bit here is Gridfinity. You can see I got just an assortment of bins. Obviously it's not staged yet, but you know, end mill holders, spins, soft jaws, other half of the mod vices and hardware and stuff like that. So kind of a good work surface to work off of. In the drawers here, I've kind of started making some tool holders ones with some rough labeling here, face mill or shell mill, 16 mil. I'm making a couple more redos here for my 10 mil and a couple more ER collet ones. I've got these roughly labeled with the ER collets. I'll put in some of them, but obviously once these are in the machine, I won't need these holders in the drawer. So I'm probably going to put magnets on the bottom and just store them on the side of the cart if they're not in the machine. My goal is eventually to either get more of these tool holders or find somebody that can make them on a lathe down the road. And then I've got spot for one more that's on the printer right now. These two are getting reprinted as well. Layout is to be determined, but I'm just kind of as I got them out of the machine, I just needed to put them somewhere, so there we go. I've got one more still in the machine that I need to get out once I get the spindle unlocked here. And then obviously there's a tool in that one. I need new inserts for my face mill here. But that's kind of drawer 1 there. Drawer 2, more Gridfinity. This, I don't know if it's going to be work holding or what. You know, my fixture plate plugs and just the basic vise. I may swap or add an additional, like Saunders fixture one down in here. If I'm not going to use the Gridfinity, because I do have Gridfinity down in the 3rd, deeper one. So maybe this one becomes the Saunders, my fixturing, 4th axis, vices, that kind of stuff. You can see my hammers just kind of hanging out. And then I've got this big deep drawer. I think instead of Gridfinity or Saunders, I think I'm going to do maybe vertical pallet storage for at least part of it. So make kind of like a file folder system kind of thing, but for vertical pallet storage, and then subdivide it as I need to. Otherwise, this would just be supplies and just a junk drawer. Maybe a 2-tier system could work, but to be determined on that back one. This just gets everything that I had in this Pelican toolbox into here. And I really like how this is going to play out. So it's been another 2 months of not touching the machine, unfortunately. But what I did, I picked up this Dell, I think this is a 21-inch, 22-inch touchscreen monitor, so my goal is, it's going to go here. It's going to take up this whole space. I might circle back to this stuff, but I think I'm just going to remove this panel for now and get this screen up here and working talking machine, so I'll have touch screen and then a full keyboard to control that. And then with where this fits, I'll have room down below there, right? I'll have probably about that much space for physical buttons, that kind of stuff. So I could repurpose some of these buttons. But since these are Fanuc-based keypads, I don't really need that specific thing. So I think a full bigger touchscreen and buttons. So what I've been doing some old school CAD, some cardboard aided design. Basically what I did is I peeled this panel back a little bit. You can see I pulled the little safety rope out of the way, and I tracked down the bolt hole pattern and just kind of traced it onto a piece of cardboard here, and then where I punched in all the screw heads is kind of giving me a good indication of centering of where this will sit. So I have a rough shape of the panel. Now I just got to transfer this digitally. I'm going to probably do a cardboard or masonite like I've been doing. And then this will definitely have to be steel or aluminum. So I'm going to get this from like Suncut Send or something like that eventually. But I'm going to keep prototyping because I need to beef it up. And I found the angle, right? So I found the angle of this is about 18 degrees. So right now if I had it here, it would be reflecting these lights above me. So I actually want it more flat or even angled down, right? So that it doesn't catch the glare behind of the lights above me. So I think just a regular like Visa mount that you get for like your TV would space it off of this cabinet too much. So I think I'm going to do 2 layers. One that's kind of like a top layer, and one that would actually bolt on the inside here, right? So one on the outside, one on the inside that would sandwich so that I can mount further in where this PC is. This PC is going away, or actually now it's Linux. This is going to go away, so I'll have all that couple inches to play with there to actually mount a mount back in there so that it sits at the 18 degrees, but the bottom would be pretty flush. That's kind of what I'm hoping, because then I could then build out an enclosure around it, a shell around it a little bit more with some sheet metal. What is nice is this monitor has a couple USBs on it and all the buttons. So if I put that up there and then actually built a little shroud around it that would come off of that same bracket, I think would be pretty sweet. Yeah. So that's a work in progress, and then I'm still working on getting back to the back of the machine. Nothing's really happened back here since you last saw it. I've got the Raspberry Pi running Linux CNC, talking to my Mesa card. I've got the Mesa card talking to a couple of these contactors to send power to the drives into this, and I think it was like the coolant pump and a couple other things. So I've got that stuff working, It's just these aren't going active because of this, the safety boards. So that's where I'm at, is I need to rip those out and then start tracing wires back directly to these things. I just haven't committed to that yet. So that'll be the next thing, hopefully soon. And then the last thing, I bought 10 of these off of eBay. These are just basic BT30 ER20 tool holders. These will need to get modified. They'll be shortened about 10 mil. This top ring will have to be shortened down. This one will have to be laid down or ground down, turned down, whatever, with a bearing put on. But I've got 10 of those. These were, I think, 10 bucks a piece, so these are dirt cheap. These are not high quality things, but for the purpose of my machine, quantity of good enough is kind of what I'm after. So I've got 10 of those. I just need to find somebody to modify those for me, because I don't have a lathe.